been in a car and heard a song coming through your speakers and instantly remember all the words? Do memories of another time or place, and usually this is the case, events, flood your brain? This happens to me all the time. If I'm on my way to work, or even walking down the street and a song hits my ears and bam, I'm somewhere else. I remember the good times and even the bad times. I've even had it happen to me when I've overheard music from another source, like in a grocery store, and that seems to happen a lot in grocery stores. This song is a big Canadian classic. It's called Take Off by Bob and Doug Mckenzie, with Geddy Lee, of course. This song came out in the early 80s, and it still makes me laugh out loud to this day. But in all transparency, I did have a history with the Mckenzie brothers before ever hearing this song. You see, Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas started performing Bob and Doug Mckenzie on the TV show SCTV. Think of it like a Canadian Saturday Night Live. The show, Great White North, was like Weekend Report on Saturday Night Live, except there was no news on it, ever. It was just a couple of Canadians drinking Molson beer and talking about Canadian things, like back bacon and donuts. The entire show was about 2 minutes in length in a single episode of SCTV, just one small part. I think in all total there's probably less than an hour of total in Bob and Doug Mckenzie material through the entire show of SCTV, like the entire run. Not a lot of time to make a splash, but holy crap did they ever make a splash. The Bob and Doug Mckenzie shtick literally went around the world. My family, being Canadian, my parents really got into the SCTV show, watching Count Floyd, Earl Cannonbear whenever they could. I watched right along with them. I didn't get all the jokes. I was pretty young. But it was funny to see John Candy and others come into their own, be really, really funny so early on in their career. And it was neat because it kind of seemed like we were seeing it before the rest of the world really knew who they were. Of course, later on, Uncle Buck and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids would be the biggest thing, in the world. And whenever I watch any of the other cast's movies, I like to think to myself that, hey, I knew where they were first. When they released the Bob and Doug Mckenzie album, it was called The Great White North, because we're Canadian. It was mostly a comedy album, like Bob and Doug doing classroom announcements and singing the 12 Days of Christmas. And that's a Christmas song that still gets played yearly in my home. But the big hit, the one that got mainstream radio play, actually the only one that got any radio play, was Take Off. Geddy Lee was the lead vocals of a Canadian rock band called Rush. They were a big band, and that helped make the song huge. I still recall kids talking about the song at school and using the term take off, instead of swearing at each other on the playground, because we couldn't get in trouble with telling each other to take off, because it wasn't a swear word, not really. So we got by on a small little Canadian technicality. But little did they know, my mom had actually bought the record. I don't know where she got it from, whether she got it from a physical store or from pillaging the Columbia House Record Club musical treasures. But either way, she got it. And it got many, many listens in my home. They became so popular that Bob and Doug even started a movie. It was called Strange Brew. I don't really think the movie did very well in the box office. These stories are from my memories and factually questionable from time to time. But man, it's a great movie, filled with a bunch of 80s Toronto scenery and terrific, strange, odd laughs. I remember watching the movie for the first time. Well, actually, I remember renting the movie. See, I had to go to Blockbuster to hunt for it. I guess the U.S. company that owned the distribution rights didn't really think a Canadian comedy about brothers and their beer would all that be all that popular in Canada. Those people were idiots. I did eventually find the tape buried in the comedy section and proudly marched it up to the counter. The clerk looked at the cover, then looked at me and stopped ringing me through. He asked where I got it. Apparently, he didn't know that it was even for rent at his store. But as I was leaving with my new temporary treasure, I could hear the clerk asking someone about reserving the movie when it came back. With his luck, and the fact that the movie was great, I probably stealth returned it too late. Stealth returning a tape was simply putting it into the night return slot after they had closed for the day. I wouldn't have to pay late charges then. You see, the next time I would go to rent something, I would usually be able to talk my way out of charging me late fees. This song has stayed in regular rotation in my headphones since it came out. It's so catchy and funny. It still makes me happy. Lately, meaning a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to one of my managers at work. I asked him if I had done my task satisfactorily, and he said, "Yep, beauty." It made me pause, physically pause. You see, everyone who loves Bob and Doug Mckenzie would know that saying beauty in a positive, casual way is something that they say all the time. I asked him about it, and he admitted he was a big fan of the Great White North. And we chatted about Bob and Doug Mckenzie, their shows, the Christmas song, and even the movie. I guess I never really thought that Bob and Doug Mckenzie of having a lasting impact on somebody that I knew. Like, I have seen the 40-year anniversary documentary on Bob and Doug Mckenzie filled with Hollywood stars praising the characters and everything. But for some reason, it never really hit home to me that people around me could share the term take off. I, for some reason, always thought that the Great White North album was a secret only known to me and a few people that I knew. I even had one of my cake decorators when I was running the bakery make a Bob and Doug Mckenzie cake. Kathy didn't know who they were, but she did a fantastic job in it anyway. Like, just amazing stuff. Even the store's owner seemed to like it. I've never been so happy to know that I was wrong. The Bob and Doug Mckenzies reminded me of a simpler time. People today would definitely question their dependency to alcohol, but back then we didn't care. We were too busy laughing. They were great. They pointed out the stuff that made us Canadian. It was all stuff that, well, we kind of seemed to do. The plaid, the casual speak, the beer, just, everything. It was just us in the 80s. And that's what this song reminds me of. So thanks for listening to a Canadian story that fell out of my head. In the comments below, let me know what song makes you think of a simpler time, and beer, and back bacon. I'd love to hear some of your ideas. Remember, as always, please like, comment, and subscribe